For decades, the waterfronts of southwest Connecticut were dominated by industry. Factories and power plants dotted the coast. In between were pockets of wealth, private residences with pristine waterfront views. But over the past decade, we've seen a transformation. As manufacturing and industrial uses have shrunk, sites have been redeveloped, turning into housing, retail, and even public uses, marking a new era for Connecticut's waterfront.
Hi guys, it's Kelly from Coastal Connecticut Times, and we're diving into this waterfront transformation. We're going to be taking you to the sites that have been redeveloped or actively under construction, highlight some uncertainty around others, and take a look into the future, including what needs to be done to make Connecticut's coastline more resilient against climate change and sea level rise.
There's no better place to start than with Stamford's Harbor Point neighborhood. Built on more than 80 acres along the Stamford Harbor, just a few blocks south of the train station, this mixed-use, transit-oriented development sits on many former industrial sites. The vision for this community, which is located in Stamford's South End neighborhood, began in 2005. In 2008, the properties were purchased by developer Building and Land Technology, which brought in more than 4,000 residential units, restaurants, and retail to these former industrial sites. While the development has provided millions in tax revenue for the city and revitalized underutilized sites, there have been some concerns from neighbors about how intense the development has been and some questions about BLT's building practices. Moving up the coast to Bridgeport, there's two major redevelopment projects ongoing along the water. The first is Steel Point Harbor, a major mixed-use project that's already home to some commercial uses, including a Starbucks, Chipotle, Bass Pro Shops, and Boca Oyster Bar. In 2024, the developer broke ground on the first residential project on the site called The August, which will be home to 420 residences and multiple amenities. Last year, there was also a groundbreaking for a Residence Inn by Marriott at the property. Across the harbor, demolition work has begun on the site of the former coal-fired power plant. While the future use of this site is still unknown, the city is in the midst of a planning process to examine what types of uses could be there. At the same time, a group of local residents are working to save the iconic red and white striped smokestack to see if it could be incorporated into any future development. Speaking of power plants, Norwalk's Manresa Island has been home to a decommissioned power plant for years. Now, thanks to the generosity of Austin and Allison McCord, a philanthropic couple from the city, what was an environmentally hazardous blighted site will now be turned into a public park. The couple unveiled their final plans for the park, which will be named Manresa Wilds, in mid-February. The plans for the project call for transforming the existing power plant building into an event space, providing beachfront access and a large lawn space, building a pool, creating trails and learning spaces, adding a playground and nature-based play spaces, building an urban ecology center, and enhancing the site's natural elements through planting buffers, restoring native plants, and making the coastline more resilient. The overall cost of the project, including remediation and construction, is $410 million, all of which the McCords will be paying for. Next door, Darien also has a new public park, Great Island. The town purchased what was the private estate of the Ziegler family for about $85 million in 2023. Since then, the town has been working on a master plan for the island, which aims to create meaningful public access that respects the ecology of the island. This includes improving and enhancing pedestrian trails, protecting the coastline, preserving the historic aspects of the site, providing access to the water in a thoughtful manner, and finding ways to activate the site that don't also negatively impact it. While not as large as the last two properties we discussed, the plans for 108 Water Street in South Norwalk also call for bringing more public access to the water. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved plans for 59 residential units, a restaurant, office space, boat slips, and public waterfront access last year. However, the developer has filed an amendment to the plans, asking that some of the office space be converted into a hotel.
Now that we've gone through many of the projects we know are coming, let's explore a few where the future is a little more uncertain.
Starting in Westport along the Saugatuck River, Roan Ventures had applied to build a mixed-use waterfront commercial hub along Riverside Avenue called the Hamlet. The plans, which would have brought more than 50 residential units, a hotel, shopping, and more to the area, sparked a massive debate in town, featuring months of conversation, hundreds of public comments, and extensive reviews. In the end, the Planning and Zoning Commission rejected the proposal, citing concerns about safety and traffic, while also saying that it did not meet the coastal New England village look envisioned for the area. The developer initially filed a lawsuit to appeal the ruling, but recently this month has withdrawn it. Meanwhile, back in Norwalk, while many industrial sites have been fading away, O&G Industries along the Norwalk Harbor had looked to intensify its industrial activities on its site. However, the area around the site has changed so much that residents in the city pushed back on the proposal. O&G ended up pulling their plans, but it's unclear what could happen to the site in the future. In the background of so many of these projects is a conversation about resiliency and what the waterfronts of Connecticut could look like in the future, particularly if sea levels do rise and if there are more severe storms that impact coastal areas. Both Norwalk and Bridgeport have conducted resiliency studies that highlight ways they could mitigate some of the impacts of climate change to their coasts. And some of the plans for the redeveloped sites incorporate these ideas. For example, Manresa plans to add native plants, remove some concrete and allow for tide pools and living shorelines, and expand buffers to the site.
So, what could the coast of Connecticut look like as this transformation continues? That's something we'll keep reporting on here at coastalconnecticuttimes.com.